this is what our webinar is going to talk about today. We are going to level up your fundraising. This is the momentum boost. This is all the activity that you need to get started and run to that finish line. We're going to let the fundraising begin. And if you didn't come to the last webinar when this was all green, now we've converted to all blue. 1B with a billion. $1 billion have been raised with Octria. You guys are the heroes out there, as well as your donors, raising that money and doing phenomenal things in your community. So this is the agenda that we've developed. Okay, I've got a ton of slides. Some of them are just quick, and we're going to take a deeper dive into the Octria platform. And some of them are just there so that you can look back on later if you need. I promised you at the last webinar we were going to take a deeper dive into tickets, and that is going to be coming up shortly. We're going to talk about system emails, health checks, checking in, credit card handling fees, paddle raise, live auction, games, recording your transactions, and a bit more. Okay, first, I wanted to let you know this is so exciting coming out. I was hoping we would have it for today, but these Google Play stores and Apple stores are a little slower than me. Coming out, pending release from the Google Play and the Apple Play Store is the Octria Admin Check-In app. So you know we've always had the Checkout app, but it was only for Apple devices. Shortly, very, very shortly, the Octria Admin app will be for check-in as well as checkout. It will be for Apple and for Android. So that is big news that we're dropping here today. And as soon as it drops from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, we will be putting that notification out to everybody. So can I get a woohoo? We're very excited about it here. Very excited for you guys to be able to be mobile in the room and be able to move your guests along and get into all the activity and socializing and fundraising and all that stuff. So with that, I am going to let you know that that is coming soon and move into tickets. Tracy is going to take us on a tickets tour. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat pod. We will answer them either as we go along or if it's a little more extensive at the end. And then you will get a replay and you will get the slides. Tracy, talk to us about tickets.
I'm going to, but I got to give a little woohoo about our announcement coming soon for Android and the check-in app. It's so exciting and looking forward to hearing more about that. And I'm going to just jump over into tickets. And as Lori was sharing, we're talking about the momentum of your event from when you start setting up to your table assignments, paddle assignments, check-in the whole way through. And so we are going to take a deeper dive into the tickets area. Now, the tickets, Octria does have a tickets dashboard, and that provides a space where you can streamline your ticketing. So when you sell tickets on Octria, your guests will be pre-registered automatically as bidders. Again, just making it smoother, building momentum from when they first start all the way through. They come to your website, they can see, your event, your purpose, your mission. They can watch as the event unfolds, get the information that they need. So we like to say it's one place to tell your story. Guests get one link, one place, and then it's where all the activity is recorded. And on to the next slide. Here we go. And I'm going to actually jump into the screen sharing here. I'm just going to jump to the, let's go in here. We're just going to jump into the dashboard and look at the tickets dashboard. So here we are. We have our demo event here, and I'm going to just kind of continue talking about our tickets. So if you'll notice, we have some great graphs. Some of this for you who have been working, using Octria for a while, you'll notice some updates. So just wanted to kind of anchor in here again as this one place where you are kind of building your momentum. So from the tickets dashboard, you can add your ticket items, but you can also sell your tickets if you are wanting to sell some from your dashboard. We'll also be looking on the online side, but we wanted to make sure that you saw the dashboard side as well. So during your setup, when you come, we are going to just kind of look at all the areas that you can be involved with. So we're going to start with the ticket settings, something early on that you may be wanting to review in this spot. And you can, again, all this is available for the dashboard. For those who have been using Octave for a little while, we brought everything into one place so you can more easily understand what your settings are going to be. So you have your options, your meal choices, all the way through from your registration. I'm going to stop here a little bit for your event details. This information is what's going to show up for your guests' e-tickets and for in their mobile wallet. So we would say that this is something you want to update early on before you start selling your tickets. You can't do it later, but this is something that follows all the way through. And it is a more customized information about your start time, location, so that it will show up on your e-tickets. Here's your registration information. And then right at the bottom, we now have the area of the paddle assignments. And you'll see that you can have that setting that it's always on. Some like to turn it off. You have different ones here. It's only on ticket sales. So that is something that you want to look at, consider. And then we have this default to no, show the participant their paddle. We have set that to no so that during your event, it does not show up as you're preparing. It doesn't show up on the emails or any other information until check-in. That's a different setting. So we just wanted to highlight that a little bit so that you would have, as you're getting momentum, start and looking at your settings, making sure it reflects what you want to do this year. And then we like to jump into your ticket styling. Again, something you want to look at before you're setting up your tickets, because then you can look and see what is it going to look like for the guests that get the tickets. You can preview them. You can see what it's going to look like in the mobile wallet. And again, we like to highlight, we have the ticket themes. And we do have a default theme. I'm going to jump back and show you an example of that in a little bit. But you can click through here and you'll see that we have all kinds of options that you can use. They may be matching some of the themes that you're already using for your website that match Octria, but we also have custom. And I'm just going to save this so you can see that you can update your ticket experience so that it really matches your event, especially if you have some assets that you would like to be showing here as well. That we have within Octria that I have really enjoyed and appreciated is our table of features. So you can set up tables within Octria. You can have your admission tickets set up where you, when you sell a table of 8, it will generate a table. You'll see here, you can generate it automatically. You can add tables. You can assign people to tables as well. So there is, and then different reports as well. So definitely something you'd want to look at and set up if that is going to help you. And we say, Octria is event fundraising. So the table feature, we see people using them for golf tournaments and all different other functionalities where you're trying to cluster groups together and manage them that way. And I'm trying to think, I could just actually jump back from screen sharing. Well, I guess I would just cover here too that, on our dashboards, we always have many places that you can run reports. So we do try and cluster many of our reports there as well. So thank you. Here we are back. And we'll just run through some
more. There's 2 more ticket questions, and maybe we can chat through these because we have a lot more stuff, and I want to stay in the tickets area. If people are already in the system as bidders, will that facilitate their ability to get this year's ticket? So you want to talk about if what we move, what we don't move.
Yeah.
We always give our personal opinions.
You know what? I was just going to say that, Lori. If you're running an event and you're copying over an event and having tickets, our suggestion is you don't copy over your ticket holders or your participants. That way it allows you to have a fresh purchase as they come through. It gives you their current email and their credit card information and any update in cell phone numbers or emails, especially as we see people are moving around still, and addresses. So I'm just going to say, so when you say, does that facilitate their ability? We would say, buying a ticket fresh really is the cleanest way for them to walk through that. But they'll be familiar with it and the checkout process, which is pretty straightforward.
Awesome.
And
And then Kim has a question about uh, tickets that are purchased. Do those dollars factor in the percentage on the integration fee on Octria? Yes, it does. So on the Emerald, it's 1%. On the Explorer, it's 1%. On the Emerald, it's 0.5%, and on Diamond, it's 0.25%. Put that up against any other ticket plan out there.
yes, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for your questions. So we're just going to kind of go through. You'll see that we had talked about some of what is involved. We have these slides there so that it can be in our slide deck as we come back. We did the ticket settings, we did the paddle, and again, we'll be talking a little bit more about that at check-in, but if that's something you want to share, the ticket styling, which is what I was just sharing about. Our default is to the left. It does look great, but if you really did want to stylize your e-ticket, you can do that early on, we would suggest, because that is all the way through, including your event information as well. And so it really does help it to be a standout and make it recognizable in their wallet. It's a great look and part of the excitement of the event. Now, often we do get asked again, as we're having these great questions on tickets. So what about people, guests who are buying a table of ticket or sponsors? Can we capture their information? And so we say yes. But we recognize that capturing information along the way is very layered and it takes a little bit of work. So we try to really come alongside with that. So when someone purchases a table of tickets or a sponsorship, they can make the purchase. If they don't know who they're bringing during the purchase, they can add, if they know 1 or 2 people of the 8 of the table, then they can come back and they can add in guest information afterwards before the event. And then, as we know, if necessary, it can happen at check-in as well. Here we go. So here's just an example of what a ticket purchase would look like. And we're going to walk through, I'm going to purchase the table of 8 tickets. So when they go, the guest makes it, they can go through and they'll enter their own information as the purchaser. And then they have the opportunity to enter their guest information, what they have. As we said, it's not a requirement, but they can, what they have, they can be entered there. And here is what we have is all the tickets they are purchased will display on their own ticket hub. It's an easy to access page on the right-hand side here, where they can view all the tickets they purchased and their guest details. They'll know who they assigned it to and perhaps who they still need to assign to. The purchaser will receive, as soon as they buy it, they get an email with the information that they've already entered, and once that could, with the link so they can go back at any time and update that information. So that is during the purchase.
Awesome. Tracy, I want to pause right there for one of the questions. It said, what's the best way to enter an event volunteer so that they too are entered as a participant? Those are 2 different areas. The event volunteer is as a user, as an admin on your organization within the dashboard. For them to bid, they would have to register as a participant in the event. So I wouldn't auto register them in. I would let them go through this process like Tracy is explaining, because then they will be in the event itself as a bidder or a participant.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I agree with you, Lori. I have to say, there's been times when we're event, a week out and you have 5 volunteers and they still haven't registered themselves. You can enter them in through the dashboard. Under the, sell tickets and whatever price you're selling at, you may have a volunteer ticket and then send them the e-ticket themselves, especially if you need to capture meal choice. So it can, as we said, our experience is if guests will register themselves through the website, that is the best way to capture the information. But if that's a challenge, and it can be a challenge, then you can always do that through the dashboard as well.
Awesome. There's a couple more questions coming in on sponsors and tickets and meals and dinner choices. I see them. I'm going to pin those to a little later in the conversation because we're going to talk about that.
Yes. Thank you for the questions, and we definitely will come back to them. I may cover a couple of these, but please, we won't lose them. And so, as we said, when the ticket purchase is made, the purchaser, your sponsor, let's say, can get an email where they can, go to their ticket hub. They can see how many tickets they've had, who they've sent to, and who they're still waiting to define. Now, let's say, did I just skip one? Okay. The advantage we often say is when they get to the ticket hub, just so you know, we have a new feature that was asked and requested. So here it is. We're excited at it. And then they can print your ticket as well. As we've talked about, and you'll be hearing more about coming in, there's QR codes, but tickets can be printed and handed in, and that can be done from the ticket hub as well. So with your sponsors, let's say they enter it at purchase, or you've sent them an email and they've clicked through, maybe a little gentle reminder. Would you update that information for us? Or if you've done it through the dashboard, then you can send them an e-ticket. And so now we're talking about not the sponsor hat, but the recipient hat, who's hearing from you about your event. They can click through, they will get their e-ticket. It will have their key information. You can customize the e-tickets and add any additional information there as well. And then from the e-ticket, they can click through to their own ticket hub, add their own credit card, address, phone number, meal choices, etc. And just as I said, we do have the registered credit card. We often get asked, can we have people register their credit card before they come? And yes, you can send out that email. We often say, put some text in, can't wait to see you. You may even want to put in some additional parking information in there in the registered credit card email, something that makes it that they want to open, because often people do want to see parking tips before the event, and say, please register. This will really help with the momentum, smooth check-in, words that are really inviting and exciting about your event. Now, if you have guests that come and they haven't entered their information, your sponsor maybe has a few that you weren't able to, that can be managed at check-in. It does take a little extra time and training, but we're saying just when you're prepared for it, it works actually quite smoothly. So it's something that can be covered with your volunteers. And we actually you can create a test event. If you wanted to go through that sequence, you can practice in a test event just to be ready, especially for those VIP sponsors that you have. Now, an area that we have all grown to love and that we really wanted to call out is health checks. Now you'll see a banner on your dashboard with health checks, and we have all kinds of great information there, but we actually have some specific for tickets. So you may notice that you in advance wanted to look at guests who have multiple tickets or same names, same emails. And so you can look under the health checks and run some reports to see what kind of information you have there.
Awesome. And before we leave tickets altogether, I do want to answer a couple of these questions that are here since we're in this area. Somebody had asked about meal choices, and can you set a cutoff? Yes, under your registration options, you can change that to a meal choice change cutoff date and put in an exact date and exact time. That way they cannot be edited and they're locked in. They ordered the fish, they're getting the fish. And then I think there was a question about if someone sponsors a table but does not enter names or dinner choices, which happens because a lot of times they'll buy that in advance. Is there a way to set a deadline so they're not able to change that information after a date? I ran into this issue after my catering numbers were turned in. So that food would lock in the tickets. They'll be able to grab that from the hub and share it to their other person. Elizabeth, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've seen some groups add it to their e-tickets as well, or to the emails to say, meal choices will cut off by this date. If you have not selected a meal choice by this date, you will get the standard beef option, or, whatever option you want to go with.
And then there's a question, if we as admins received guest info to assign to a sponsored table, how do we avoid duplicated seats? Will the ticket hub? So that's actually in the table settings area. There's a drag drop, and there's only however many seats you allow in that table will only allow you to have that many people in there. Elizabeth, did you want to add anything to that?
And your health checks. Your health checks
Yeah.
will show you if you have duplicate participants or duplicate emails. So check those health checks, because you'll see, why are there two Bob Jones? That kind of thing.
Awesome. Shall we go ahead and pivot over to check-in?
Yes, let's do it. All right. So check-in on Octria can be super smooth. There are just a few steps you need to take to ensure that. And a lot of that is on the administrative side. So we're talking about preparing. So you want to review your check-in options in advance on the Octria dashboard. Outside of Octria, you want to make sure that the room you're going to be doing check-in in has Wi-Fi. I cannot stress enough how much this is important if you're planning to use Octria for check-in. You want to test it in a similar time of day on, say, for your events on a Saturday. You don't want to go test it Tuesday afternoon, right? You want to test it to make sure that you have that and you're good to go. And then set up a test event so you can practice, so your volunteers can practice. It's easy to use Octria for check-in, but anytime you're doing something new, if you're doing it, it can be a little stressful, especially if you're at an event with lots of people waiting to check in. So set up a test event and try to get as much of that guest information in advance as possible. Like Tracy was just talking about, if you see that there's a lot of guest of in there and people haven't put their guest names, you can send ticket statements. You can trigger those closer to the event to get them to put it. And if it's really close to the event and you have sponsors or people you can reach out directly and try to get that, send that registered credit card request, and train your volunteers. Come up with a game plan in advance so you know how many people you're going to need, where they're going to be positioned, what are they going to do. Make sure they have an Octria login so they have a way to get into the system. And it's a good time to pick up an assist call and double check your settings with your staff and volunteers, make sure they're trained. You can also drop in the chat. This is super common. People will ask us in the Octria chat, is my event good? Does everything look all right? We totally get it. That is not unusual. Come ask us. We're happy to answer. And here on the Octria dashboard, what I'm showing now is the check-in options page. So this is where you can choose different things. By default, an email is going to go out when you check someone in, and if you have texting enabled and they gave you a cell phone number, a text will go out as well. So there's the check-in text, which you can customize. For example, if you wanted to zhuzh up the wording a little bit for your event, this is a great place to do that. And you can also have it so it shows the paddle number and table number in there. So those are important and right under the check-in settings. Now that a guest has already registered and you're ready to check them in, you are going to go on the dashboard to the check-in page and then choose the guest and then click next to continue. So this slide is a bit of a placeholder because I am about to share my screen and I will walk you through how to check in using Octria.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Izzy. As you transfer over, that we kind of set these slides up to show you prepare. This is how you set up the settings. This is how you do it, and then moving forward. So thank you, Izzy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. So I'm here on the dashboard, ready to check in at my event. I'm going to go to the Participants tab on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to click on Check In. From here, you can search by name. So for example, if I wanted to look up John, I can do that. There's an option to search, which is what I'm showing you. There's also an option to scan a QR code. This, when we say train, prepare, decide what you're going to do, you'll want to know before the event if you're going to be scanning a QR code so you can enable your camera permissions, or if you're going to be searching. Because if you do opt to scan the QR codes, you want to resend the tickets probably the day before the event or the morning of, so people don't have to go looking for their tickets. So this is one way that we're saying prepare. But for these purposes, I'm just using the search. So I typed John, and I can see there are two Johns. I'm looking for John Lee, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. And I can see the paddle number at the top. You'll be able to see if there's a credit card on file or not. If you have an integrated payment processor connected like Stripe or Authorize.net, you can click here to register a card. If you are using USB or swipers or readers, those things in advance, you need to connect them to Octria. Like if you're using the admin app to add cards, for example. You want to connect those in advance. And then this is where you can edit their information. So in Octria, if you're going to edit information, you click the pencil icon to edit. And then it's important to remember to click the check mark to save. So this is where you add first and last name. We generally recommend trying to get at least an email or a phone number so you have a way of contacting them. That way, if they made a donation or something at the event, you do have a way to contact them. Then I'm going to hit the check mark to save. Most groups don't add the address at the event, but it's up to you if you'd like to do that. And then you can just click here to check in. So I'm going to go ahead and check in John Lee. And then it's going to take me from this page back to the main check-in page. Something that's nice here is it will tell you what percentage of your guests you've checked in. So if you're trying to gauge, okay, is everybody here yet? Do we still have a lot of people coming? It'll tell you, oh, you've only checked in 6%, or oh, you're at 95%. I can send some of those volunteers inside to help with the auction, or some of the staff. So you can keep an eye on this, and it will show you if you've checked someone in, a little checked in symbol next to them. You do have the option, if you don't want to see that, to hide the checked in guest. If somebody shows up and you cannot find their name, I'm looking in here for, I don't know, let's see, Rhonda. Rhonda's not here. All right, then I'd ask, Rhonda, are you the guest of someone or a company? And Rhonda tells me, oh yeah, I am the guest of Culinary. So I can either type guest or I could type Culinary. It's up to you. And then you select one of the guest of profiles. So I can choose any of them. And then you can just go in here and you can put their information. So Rhonda Banks, I could put her email, check mark to save if I wanted to add a card, and then hit check in guest. Because now if you go to search, she's not going to show, it won't be under guest of Culinary, it will be under Rhonda. And when you send that, pro tip, a lot of times groups will tell them, we just sent you an email, you can click on that link to sign in, especially if you're using and having an online auction. That link is really helpful because they don't have to manually sign in if they click on that link that you send them at check-in. And then I did want to show you, say you have a couple show up or somebody, and you bring them up and you see there's two people and you're like, why are there two people here? This means that they're linked. I can see they're both paddle number 1. And if I wanted to edit Earl's information, I can scroll down and do it here. I see that Earl has a credit card on file, so that's what it looks like when there's a card on file. And I see Earl is at table 1 and has all the information. And I want to go in here. Susie tells me she wants to bid, so I go to Susie's profile by clicking up here. And then I scroll down and I see, oh, she doesn't have any information, so I can add her information right here and hit the check mark to save. If for some reason people are linked and shouldn't be, then you can always unlink them. This will change their paddle number, because when someone is linked in Octria, they share a paddle number, and that means they can also share a credit card to check out. So this is a super common, easy way for couples to bid. Once again, this was all under participants, and then check in right here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing really quick, and I will transfer.
Lizzie, while we're in there, there's two questions that are kind of related to that. Kathy asks, we use laptops for our event. How would we scan a QR code? Do you want to answer that, or shall I?
Yeah, so you can use a laptop. We recommend using tablets if you're going to do it, or iPads, but you can do it from a laptop by connecting your camera permissions, and it will be the outer camera. So if I'm sitting here and the guest is in front of me, it's going to use that outside camera by default.
And I've seen some orgs put a secondary camera on there so they can kind of hold on to it, and it's
like a webcam.
Yeah. Second question, or another question, how crucial is it to capture the credit card information upon check-in? We find that many guests don't do it in advance. They have 300 people. It takes so long to check them in. You want to tell her to make us some suggestions for smoothie and speedy check-in?
Yeah, I say it really depends on your event, first of all. So if you're just having an online auction and maybe a live auction with a handful of items, you can set your online auction to require a credit card to bid. On the Octria dashboard, you can change that setting. So even if they get past you and don't have a card on file, they're going to have to input it themselves before they bid. If you are having raffles and a fund to need / paddle raise, and you're having lots of people raise paddle numbers and maybe you don't have a ton of information, that's a case where I see a lot of groups try to get at least the information if they're not getting the credit card information, because I have seen more groups than I'd like where they got tons of donations. They did a great event, but then they didn't get any information for the people. It's just like Bob Jones, no email, no phone number, no credit card. And then Bob didn't come to pay for the paddle raise because he probably just assumed, they'll get it somehow, but there's no way to contact. So it's not required, but it really does depend on your event. Consider what type of things you'll be doing at your event. How are you going to get their information? If it's a lot of items, people are going to come to pick up the items if it's in person. If it's all online, that's different, because obviously you can set the setting to require a credit card, or you're not going to physically give them the item until you get paid. So, yeah.
And staff accordingly. If you know that that's been a bottleneck for you guys, take all your volunteers, put them up at that table at the beginning. It'll probably just be during that crunch time. Coming soon will be a self check-in feature, and that'll help that along, but I'm just going to drop that breadcrumb there and let you keep an eye out for it later. And then Mary's asking, just to confirm what you said, if a couple is linked together, they always share a bid number. If the couples prefer not to share a bid number, should they still be linked? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So if they do not want to share a paddle number, they cannot be linked, because when they're linked, it's going to automatically make them share a paddle number. So they would each have their own paddle number, and they would not be linked.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Did you want me to?
Yep.
Move down, or do you want to?
Boop, boop. All right, so these slides are here. We are just going to go through them really quick. These are meant to be placeholders for you, so you can refer back to on the webinar replay when we were talking about how to find check-in, where it shows you the percentage. Whoop, that's okay. Where it shows you the percentage and how to add a participant if you need. So there is an option that I didn't show you while I was screen sharing. If somebody comes up and you need to add a participant, you can do that here. You can also sell tickets at the door if needed. Hopefully you sell out in advance, but if people show up and they're willing to give you money and want to join, that's always great too. And so from this slide, we're trying to show you what the actual details look like on the check-in page, how you can search, how you can update that. That is what the check-in screen looks like. Here we have the little icon that shows you when somebody's checked in. So if you're wondering, did I check them in? I think I did it right. Those first couple times you go to check people in, you may wonder if you did it right. This is the indicator. And then when somebody comes up, like my example of Rhonda, and you don't find them in the system, ask if they're the guest of someone or a company, and then you can search and update it, and then they'll be in the system. So rather than a lot of groups, I just want to touch on this really quick, ask why can't we just add everybody instead of updating the guest up? And while you could, it's the reason why a lot of groups do use the guest of and update that instead of just adding a new participant is if you're using tables or if you have pre-assigned paddle numbers, you don't want to have to show up with 500 paddles when you only have 150 guests, right? This way you can know what their paddle numbers are going to be, and you can know what their table numbers are going to be. You can go in Octria and pre-assign the table numbers, and then when you update that guest of profile to the person's name, you're seating them at the correct table. So that is one thing there. And then fast check-in desk and sponsor VIP. So here, this is where I was referring to earlier about trying to get as much information in advance, plan, prepare, and did you resend the tickets in a custom email before the event with details? While I'm sure your event is top of mind for you and they're probably super excited to go, we know that life gets crazy, and between work, family, friends, so many competing things for our time and interest. You probably want to send them a reminder with some details. Maybe this is where you add parking, you remind them what the attire is, if you have a theme, those kind of things, and prompt them for their information. You can send that register credit card request details. You can just update from their e-ticket. They can add their credit card and phone number if it's not in there already. So that's why a lot of groups go with the e-ticket option. And then do you have a greeter that's going to be there directing people? Visualize what your event is going to be like from the guest perspective, right? When they're coming in, is it clear how to get to check-in? If you're in a big venue, where is check-in? How do they get to your event? When they're there, is there a greeter telling them which line to go to? I've seen a lot of groups make it, if you add your information in advance, you can go to the VIP or fast track or express check-in line, as an incentive to add that. How many attendees are you going to have? And do you have adequate check-in volunteers or staff? So Lori had talked about this a little bit before, and I just want to bring it back because it is really important in that you want to make a good impression, certainly throughout the whole event, but initially it sets the tone. Check-in sets the tone for the rest of the event. So you want to make sure to have adequate staffing. And when you're thinking about how much staffing you want, consider, are these people that have done check-in a bunch? Are they very familiar with how to use Octria for check-in? Are they gonna know a lot of people and get caught up talking to people maybe if they're, quite sociable, they all helping out? Are they staff that you brought on and hired? Maybe you hired a staffing company to work it, and you'll want to consider, if they are not as experienced or whatnot, maybe get some more volunteers and then check that percentage calculator and pull them inside to the auction once you've checked in most of the people. Are you going to be handing out paddles? I think this is one that's often not considered as much maybe as it should be in advance. If you're going to be handing out paddles, are they going to be pre-numbered, or are you going to be just assigning them at the door? Do you have your Octria settings correct for this? And I've seen this work really great if you are using pre-assigned numbers rather than put them all in one bin where your whole team has to keep reaching into that bin to pool. Break them up. So, 100 to 125, 126 to 150, 151. So at least that way you're not all climbing over each other. Hey, can I get this paddle? It really depends on your event, but consider the flow. And these things, if you do consider them in advance, will help you have a smooth check-in experience for your guests. And talking about a smooth check-in experience, you want to do the training. So Octria, to help make this smooth and easy for your volunteers and staff, has come up with these templates that are going to be available on the webinar replay page. So I'm going to pass it back to Lori now so she can talk to you about building momentum.
Sure, it's my pleasure. And before we leave this area, I wanted to answer two of the questions that are in here. Angela asks, like a week in advance, I think she was talking about sending out those email reminders. You want to talk about the credit card registration email as opposed to a e-ticket reminder, or you want to chat about that a little bit, Izzy?
Yeah, definitely. So there are different emails that you can use in Octria for different purposes. So first thing I would do is, if you have a lot of guests that have not entered their information, I would send the ticket statement to the purchasers that didn't add their guest information yet. Because while you could send the email for people to add credit cards, if a lot of the guests aren't even in there yet, you're not going to get everybody's information because we don't have their name or email to send it to. So you can send the ticket statement, I would say, 2 weeks out, maybe circle back a week out and just send it. You don't have to keep spamming the same people. You can just send it to the purchasers that didn't add their information yet. And then you can send the e-ticket close to the event, a day or so out. The register credit card request email by default is only going to go to people that do not have a credit card on file. So you're not going to be sending it to everybody, just people that don't have a credit card on file. The e-ticket is great to send the day before or the morning of, like I said, because then they'll have it, if they are showing you tickets with the little reminders. And so from the e-ticket, they can update their information, but sometimes people maybe don't see the credit card option in there. So that's why the focused register credit card request email is nice, because it's telling them literally just, hey, here, register your credit card to expedite check-in. So I would say create a timeline for when you want to do that, and you can base this off of what you're seeing happening. Maybe a ton of your people are adding their credit card and guest, and that is fantastic, and you wouldn't need to send all of these. But if not, I'd say the first step is sending that ticket statement to get the information, and then sending the registered credit card request, and then the e-ticket.
Awesome. And just to reiterate, if you plan on using the QR codes, you would punch those out to people that morning so that it's at the top of their inbox, correct?
Yes, definitely. And that way they can add it to their Apple or Google Wallet or show you the email.
Awesome. Thanks. So it's my pleasure to talk about momentum and the in-room energy. And the in-room energy, if you haven't noticed, I talk about pre-planning and making sure that you have a plan in advance as well as a couple different options. So, I love a raffle. Well, I don't personally love a raffle. My husband loves raffles. He'll pull off cash for you any day for a raffle. I'm a little more stingy. However, having your raffles available for sale in advance on your website is a great option. When people are buying tickets, they can go ahead and buy a raffle ticket. And usually they're doing that weeks or sometimes even months in advance. So they've spent that money. They walk into the room. They're like, I'm at a zero sum accounting basis here. So yeah, I will buy a couple more raffle tickets. If you're selling them in the room, you can set it up as a QR code. Somebody can scan it, grab a raffle ticket. If you have somebody that's putting them into the system, you can have somebody go ahead and put it in the system. So there's a lot of different pathways within Octria. So the best, like I said, is to go back, visualize what's that guest experience going to look like and what's best for your group. If you're like, oh, Lori, my group hates QR codes. Okay. Don't do QR codes. You don't have to. Just go ahead and register them and go by pedal number. So there are different ways to manage it so that it matches your audience, your tone, and what they're used to. Moving on. Anybody notice the drinks that they were drinking at the US Open? This article was in CNN and it was kind of all over social media talking about the famous honey deuce drink. It was the most popular drink that they had, and it surpassed $10 million in sales just for the US Open. You know what? That's because it's special and it's unique. And you can do that too at your event. Specialty, anything sells. So take a page out of their playbook and apply it to your event fundraiser. Maybe you have a gala night sour and it's in a beautiful martini glass. Again, you can sell them in advance. People can add it to their ticket. They can buy it at the door, or you can load it into the system manually through a quick bid entry page. Okay, moving along. Sorry. Then we also have games of chance. I talked about raffles. So in this illustration, this was from Habitat for Humanity Building Dreams. They were kind enough to share this image with us. This is the beads that they sold for the Heads and Tails raffle. And Heads and Tails raffles are great because you can make a lot of money and you can go through a Heads and Tails really quickly. So what's your audience going to spend money on? And games of chance sometimes are one of them. And you can move along pretty quickly with those. Oh, I am fast forwarding here. Mobile bidding in the room. So a lot of times people say to me, oh, we only have a couple hundred people in the room, but we have a huge audience of people that would want to bid on our items. Fabulous. You can set up your items as an online item and then in the room have people doing mobile bidding. And I have a QR code there so that people can just scan that and access that event directly, that item directly. Some people say, hey, I don't want to do that. I would just want to do the paper in the room, but still have our mobile or our online auction running in the background because it's part of our greater event. That's good too. So here's an example of what a live auction may look like. And you tend to cluster these together. And the reason that you're clustering these together is because you want to have somebody planted in front of this live auction area. And as people come over and they're looking at the trips that you're going to have, you want to be able to answer those questions in advance while they're perusing and socializing. Oh, which one are you interested in? Which one do you think you're going to bid on? Is there anything I can answer for you about the location? How much time you have to redeem the travel? Because when you're in the room and they're seated and the live auction starts, it's bang, 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 bang. This is your chance to socialize and pre-sell those live auction items. We did a phenomenal webinar with Janelle, the Gala Gal, and she did a great job talking about how to pre-sell those live auction items before you even come into the room. So a heads or tails raffle is you will purchase a ticket or a bead. You can purchase multiple of them. The MC or the auctioneer from the table, everybody that's in on the heads and tails, stand up, and then they flip a coin. And actually, they ask them, "Do you want a head or do you want a tail?" And they have to put their hand on their head or the hand on the tail. Flip a coin. If it's head, everybody that has head stays in. Everybody that has tails sit down. Meanwhile, if you have an extra bead, you can take off the one if you lost and stay in the game. And it just goes on until you have a winner. But it goes pretty quickly because you can imagine at a 50-50 chance, it goes through the who's winning, who's not winning. So paddle raise, I would absolutely figure out in advance where your spotters are going to be, how many spotters are going to be there, what kind of printed materials you're going to give them to record their paddle raise. Have them throughout the room, record the room on audio, bring that back to a nice bright area so that you can put that into the system, and quality check. Go ahead and have 2 people logging them in together, have somebody else quality checking, and make sure that you have everything organized so that when you go to log all this information in, you're doing so with training that they know how to do it, as well as the plan on how to grab those papers, do it neatly, bring them back to the area, and then figure out when you're going to push out those statements, that information to your group. So I'm going to pivot over to wrapping up, and I'm going to ask Izzy to come back and talk to, is it me? Yes, Izzy, to come back and talk about the recording transactions, statements, and checkouts.
Yeah, so wrapping up, right? You had a successful event. Woo, it wasn't showing me for some reason. There we go. You had a successful event, and now you're ready to tie everything up. And I'm going to go to the next one. So here we show where you can record it. So before you start closing out, you want to make sure that you have everything in the system recorded correctly. The sales, the auction winners, if you did paper bidding or a live auction, you can record all of those, as well as your donations under the bidding sales page or from the quick bid entry page. So those are pretty easy to record. They're right at the top. If you used paddles and you have the paddle numbers, the quick bid entry is a great option to record them quickly, so you don't have to enter all of the information. So here we're showing quick bid entry. This is where you can add the item number, paddle number, and amount. You can pin it to the item if you're recording a paddle race, for example, and you know you're going to have a bunch of the same item, and then you can pin it to the amount if they'll be at the same amount as well. So that's quick bid entry. Oh, did you have a question about that, Lori?
I did. Can you go back to the previous slide for just 1 second? Because there's a question that came in from Laura that I think is very relevant to that. She states we can't sell raffle tickets online. Totally get it. Don't end up in raffle jail due to online gambling. However, they want to be able to offer a sale that is available on, not available online, but easy to buy in person. Can you talk about that middle purchase tab?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So on the bidding sales page, that middle purchase tab is where you can record the sales. So you would add the item number, the bidder, and the amount, how many they want. You know, maybe they're getting multiple raffle tickets. And then below that, in the payment options, you can say none, which will just add it to their account so they can pay later. Or you can put a credit card, which will charge their card immediately when you record, or other if they're giving you cash, for example, and you just want to have all that data in Octria. I've also seen some groups print and use QR codes on the display pages to do that, but if you cannot record it online and it has to be on the back end, the dashboard works great for quickly recording that.
Thank you, Izzy.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so the bidder statement. After you've recorded everything and you have it in the system, you can choose to send a statement to the people that have a balance. If you use Stripe or Authorize.net as your payment processor, there's even going to be an option at checkout right in the email to click to check out. Communicate the plan in advance with your volunteers, right? So that they know what's going on, that is going to go out. That way, if there does start to get to be a line at checkout, you can tell them, oh, congratulations, you should have received an email. You can click there to check out, and then they can just show you the receipt. Know that you don't have to check everybody out. They do have the option to check out on their own, especially if you have a payment processor connected. So a good example when to send this is after the paddle raise, you know, maybe you need 15 minutes to enter all of the information. Communicate that plan with your MC or auctioneer so they can make an announcement to the people in the room, letting them know that they got it, because maybe hopefully they're having a really good time at your event and they're not glued to their phone checking it. So letting them know that it was sent out, and then they can self-pay from the bidder side from their account page by clicking Pay Now. And then I did want to also mention the Apple and Google Pay are options. If you're using Stripe and they have an iPhone with Apple Pay, or if Android, Google Pay, this is one option. You can still go the traditional method with a checkout desk as well, so they don't have to check out this way. You're still more than welcome to use Auctria's great checkout feature, as well as we have a batch checkout. So if you have credit cards on file and people have a balance due, you can run a batch checkout. Just a little bit of a tip here though, with batch checkout, you'll want to see how your fee handling was set in advance. If you have your fee handling set to optional, which means the participants have the option to cover those fees, you'll want to consider sending a statement first, because they'll have the option to cover the credit card fees. If you run a batch checkout and credit card fees aren't set to added, the organization is going to cover all of the credit card fees. So I see a lot of groups send out statements and try to get people to pay on their own. And then if they don't pay on their own, they'll run a batch checkout, but they'll give them the option first to check out on their own. So it really depends on your event and flow, but those are just some options. And then let me go to the next one. So here we have where you can check out bidders on the dashboard. So this is the other option I was talking about. And you can view transactions on the left-hand side. That will show you what they won, what they donated, just so you can confirm that's correct before charging them. I always recommend clicking view transactions just to make sure everything looks right. That's also a good opportunity to write it down for your runners. If they're grabbing the items, you can write it down, have them start grabbing the items while you finish checking them out. And then on the right-hand side, this is where we're showing batch checkout. So the batch checkout option is great if you're trying to quickly check out multiple people. You can select all of them, or maybe just some of them if you see a very large balance. I know sometimes groups will want to take checks for those, or the winner of a live auction item may want to pay by check. So you do have the option to select certain people from there if you're not going to check them all out. And then here we also have a user training available for checkout. So I talked earlier a little bit about the one for check-in, but Auctria does have a template for checkout that you can use, and you can even create a test event for your volunteers to practice in. I really recommend this because it's super easy. From the Auctria dashboard under the event tab, you just hit create test event, and it will create a copy of your real event, but in a sandbox environment. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't want to mess this up. Just do it in the test event. And you can have a little cheat sheet there on site in case you're worried that you may forget. Key thing here being prepare. And we've mentioned the bidder self-checkout and the dashboard. We also have the Auctria admin app that can be used at your event. The Auctria admin app is free to use, and you can do it on an iPhone and soon in Android. We're so close to having it on Android. We're just waiting for the Google Play Store to approve, but this is a great option for tap to pay. If you want to use tap, you can also add donations and do it that way, but you will want to connect this before. Don't try downloading this right at the time and doing it. You'll want to practice this beforehand and make sure you have it connected properly. No additional reader fees from Stripe. There is no need to tether to the dashboard. You can expedite check-in or check-out lines by doing this. This is available, like I said, on iPhones, but soon it will be available on Android as well. So this is just a great option if we know that many nonprofits and organizations, the money, you want it to go towards the mission, not buying additional equipment. So that's why we have this admin app for you to use for free to help things go smoothly. So we have a little banner here letting you know coming soon. And then I'm going to pass it back to Tracy, who's going to tell you about Little Green Light.
Sure. And I just want to, there's two notes in the chat here. And I know we're going long, so we'll wrap it up fast, and then we'll stay on here for Q&A as long as you want. But soon, yes, it is any day right now. Google Store can release it, so we're just waiting for that. And then somebody was talking about iPads and tablets versus the phone. So the phone has a different ability to be able to RFID stuff. Tablets don't. So that's where your difference is going to be between using a phone and a tablet. We're going to go ahead and roll through the end of these, and then we're going to pin the rest of the questions to the end so that if anybody needs to tap out of here, we totally get it.
Thanks. Yes, thank you. And as we talk about momentum and payments being made, which is very exciting, at the end, there's also reports that you can run through our report tab. We have a lot of reports, and we do get asked, how can I bring this into my donor management system? And so we have just recently, we've been in conversation with our friends at Little Green Light, and so we have actually created a new button with with defined reports that you can that can be looked at. And so if you go under, you would be able to find it under organization or under import, export, and you'll see a nice little button that says Little Green Light. And even if you're not using Little Green Light, click through, take a look at it. It's not a direct that goes directly into an account, so you can run these as well. And it provides 2 export options designed just to make reporting a little easier. We have the transaction export, and then we have an account export. So really excited about this. And as we say, you check it out. You can run it yourselves, even if you're not using Little Green Light yet. And now I was going to say, now we have these wonderful webinars that we're very excited about, Lori.
Sure. Yeah, we have a lot of webinars coming up. We have stacked up October and November so that we bring you a lot of information. We're going to pivot from the Octria tech stuff into more of a holistic and how are you going to raise more money? And we do that with bringing in some guest speakers. We have Dean McMurray coming in. He is a professional auctioneer out of Texas, and he is going to talk about how to run that live auction, how to paddle raise, how to get the people in the seat to give. We will transition over to Giving Tuesday. I can't believe it's coming up already. But I want you to prepare in advance. If you haven't noticed, we're preparers over here. So I want to talk to you about Giving Tuesday, getting those messages set up. You can do that automatically within Octria. We will have Claire Axelrod from Clarification come in. We're going to talk to Beard and Bowler, and they are going to talk about how to make, they don't call it a mission moment. They call it a hush video. And I love that because they're going to show you how to make that moment impactful. If any of this feels overwhelming and you're like, hey, we need some help, we need a whole lot of help, you can pivot that work over to the Octria team. 3 Zoom calls, ongoing support, training for check-in, and Elizabeth and her team. Elizabeth leads that team, and you can see that she's phenomenal, and her team is well trained as well. Elizabeth, did you want to talk a little bit about launch services?
Yeah, definitely. So we recommend if you are going to do launch, do it earlier in the event. You can always do it later, but the earlier you get launched, the more we can help you set things up. And launch comes with 3 calls: a discovery call, midpoint, and go live call, and emergency phone number you can call or text day of. If you feel like you need a little bit more support, you can do Launch Plus, which comes with a pre-event call and a post-event call, so we can help you if you're like, how do I wrap this up? How do I get into reports? Did I close everything? And then we'll also create 2 custom event graphics. So that's with Launch Plus. And
then you want to talk about assist.
So we have 2 options for Assist 20, which is just a quick 20-minute call with our team. We will walk you through whatever you want to go over. We ask you in advance what you'd like to cover, and we can really pack a lot into that 20 minutes. We also have Assist 45, which is a little bit longer of a call. A lot of groups will use this for a training call with their team, just make sure everything's set up correctly and they're good to go, and we'll go over a check-in or check-out. We have some groups that use this because they are good to go adding everything in Octria, but they don't know how to do the website, and they really really want to customize it, so maybe they'll use it for that. So with Assist, you can do 20 or 45. And if you go with the 20 and decide later, you know what, that was great, but I want another one, you can always get another one as well.
Give me more Elizabeth. I need more Elizabeth in my life. And then stay in touch with us. We post to social media very regularly. We have a Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. Here we go. Is this the nicest page on Facebook?
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
It is. All sorts of people like you guys that are running auction event fundraisers hang out there, as well as professionals. Somebody asked for the recording from last week's webinar. I dropped that into the chat. You can always email us, hello@octria.com, or click in that when you're in the dashboard in the top right-hand corner to the square chat box, and that will lead you into our support channel. Okay, sorry, I was 6 minutes over. I apologize. However, I think we made it worth your while, or at least I hope we did. Go ahead and drop any questions in the chat box if I missed it, because I don't know if I can scroll up and find the ones we missed. Go ahead and re-drop it in there. We'll be happy to show it to you. While you do that, I was going to grab the link for Auction Team Talk so that you guys can join us on that page. And then I was also going to grab the page. Oh, people always ask us, what's everybody else doing? What does their stuff look like? Octria added, I don't even know when it was, I lose track of time, a public events page where if you elect to put sorry, I grabbed the wrong link while I'm talking and instead of paying attention. A lot of groups ask us, what's everybody else doing? And you can elect to have your event as a public event, and then it shows up on the public events page, which means it's fun for all of us to look at and see what everybody's doing. And as you scroll through on the public events page, it says the date of the event. If there's a gold bar on there, then that means that they are using the Octria launch services. So you can see kind of how launch is working for some of those organizations. Did we miss anything, Tracy and Elizabeth?
You know, and I'm trying to look through, and I know early on we had some conversation about tickets and, you know, different ways, sponsorships, free tickets, volunteer tickets included with sponsorships. And so just, I think the high level answer to that was yes. Yes, you can do that online. Yes, you can do those from the dashboard. Yes, you can create tickets for your sponsors as well to be included. And we do recommend that all the time because, as we say, you know, it allows you to have one place to manage all your ticket numbers and included sponsorships as well. There was a couple other questions along the way. I'm just trying to look through again about some timelines, meal choices. I think we covered that. That would be under the ticket settings. And there is a follow-up, you know, can you send... we talked about the raffles and some questions about sending out emails and a little bit about tables. So if that is still a question that you have, do you want to drop that in again? Because we'd like to have, I'm not sure that got answered for you. And then I'm just going to keep going. Laura said, if they pre-register their credit cards, we can still send them a statement and they can elect to pay with Apple or Google Pay instead of with a credit card, with a registered card, or can they pre-register with Apple or Google Pay? That's such a great question. Elizabeth, do you want to share a little bit? You were talking about, you know, we like to say pay from your seat idea for bidders or guests.
Yeah, definitely. So they can save their credit card, and then at checkout, they could choose to pay by Apple or Google Pay. However, they cannot save their Apple Pay or Google Pay at check-in. It's not an Octria thing. It's just the functionality of it. Apple and Google Pay are more akin to tap to pay than they would be adding a card. So they can't do it that way, but they could still choose Apple or Google Pay at the end if they want to go that route. And then I did see a question about, can you send event reminders by table? So you cannot directly say, I just want to send it to this table, but you can tag the table. So table 1, table 2, and you can send emails by tags to specific tables if you'd like.
That's a great workaround.
I wonder too, if you have one person who has purchased the table, kind of like the table captain, they bought all the tables in advance. You can also send just emails to the table purchasers. So they may have added guests, but you wanted just to really connect with the kind of the owner, the original one of the table. And we do have that option as well to the ticket purchasers.
3:10 p.m.
Then there was a quick question here. Is it okay for husband and wife to be entered as two different participants, of course, but using the same email?
Yeah, we had answered. Did we answer that one a little earlier? Or we were talking about credit cards.
I thought we did.
Yeah, so I think the question is they could have the same email if they wanted to have two different bidder numbers. That can be managed. You may get a little note that you have a shared email, but if you're comfortable with that, then that can happen within the system.
I see. Yes, so it is possible. However, we recommend if they have the same number, it's okay. If not, it's not great because they will be logged in. The login in Octria is based on the email. And so if you're going to sign in and you have two different accounts and they're not linked in any way, it's going to still let you sign in, but it's going to randomly pick. So if it's Ted and Terry, I may be Terry trying to go into my account and I go into Ted's account if we're using the same email. So if possible, have their own email, or if you don't have their email yet, it's okay not to have their email. If you have a table purchaser, for example, and you don't have the emails for the guests, don't just go in there and add all of the guest emails the same. It is preferred that they have their own.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments? And I know as soon as you hang up, you're like, eek, I totally forgot to ask. That's totally fine. Drop us an email, hello@octria.com, or use that Square speech bubble. Shortly, we will have this webinar posted and the resources available with the printouts that Elizabeth was showing you that you can use for your training sessions. Looks like it's quiet. Tracy, any last words? Elizabeth, any last words?
Thanks for joining us today. It's been so fun to spend this time together, and wishing you all the success as you plan your event.
Awesome. Elizabeth?
I saw a few friends in the chat earlier that I've worked with, and I wanted to say hi, but I think they may have dropped off now. It's so fun to see all of you in the chats and in the emails, on the webinars. I can't stress enough, don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. If you're unsure of something, we are happy to check it for you. Drop in the chat or email us at hello@octria.com, because we want to see your event be a success. We are so thankful to be a small part of your fundraising journey, and we appreciate all of the great work you guys do. So we hope that you have very successful events, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Awesome. I'll close it out. Wishing you bids that soar. Hope you crush your fundraising goals.
Bye.
Bye.